All right, here we go again. So it's good to be back in the room. We're going to talk about something fun, some entertainment. I have co-authors behind me. I'm going to start also by saying Senator Bingham is also supportive. However, she is in the Judiciary Committee, a committee which we highly esteem. She's upstairs and she can't get away. Also remiss if I didn't mention Representative Pat Garofalo in the House, who back in 2018 in May, after the Supreme Court had the ruling, was all over this. He loves this stuff, which is good. And I jumped on, and he's been a mentor since then. Well, what we have here is, I'll just start from the top. It's time to move Minnesota forward. We are an island in the Midwest, and not a tropical island. I should have skipped that part. The proposal here is good for tribes, it's good for tracks, but most importantly, it's good for the consumers. It gives Minnesotans gaming options for both mobile and brick and mortar and online vendors. It respects the tribal nations and provides revenue stream to the state. And so there's no reason we shouldn't start with this proposal and move forward to get this done. That's the high-level piece. I'll give you a couple of the, we're rewriting the bill now. We already have a bill both in the Senate and the House. We're rewriting it, and we'll amend new language into that. In part, that new language will contain, at the minimum, brick and mortar for the tribes and for the two racetracks, Canterbury and Running Aces. It will also contain a minimum of at least 2 mobile licenses. So they'll be online and mobile. Of course, the compact would control the sports books on tribal land, and then we'd have licenses for the 2 racetracks because they're outside of tribal land. The mobile online licenses would be controlled by the state, and all bets going through there would be subject to a transaction tax, a sales tax, or some other sort of gross receipts tax. We have not figured out where or exactly where to put that or how much that necessarily will be. Part of the money will also be used right now for, my hope is purses for the 2 tracks. So that's the high level, kind of the mechanisms. There's a lot of areas, a lot of places people want this money to go, the tax revenue. I've been saying from the first day, this is not a big cash cow. This is about consumers and customers and having some fun and putting a legitimate form, legalizing a legitimate form of entertainment for the state of Minnesota and its consumers. So with that, I will let anybody else has something to say briefly, and then we'll have questions.
Sure, go ahead. Hi, I'm Senator Julia Coleman, Senate District 47, representing Carver County. This was an easy one for me to support. In fact, when I decided to run for the state Senate, this was the one promise my husband made me keep, was that I would push to legalize sports betting. This is a market that is hungry for this to happen in Minnesota. This is something that people of Minnesota want to see happen, that they're quite frankly traveling across the border to make happen in our sister states. And so I think that this is a win-win scenario for the people of Minnesota and for the state of Minnesota, and it has my full support.
Thank you, State Senator Karin Housley. And this is a very, very popular issue in the state of Minnesota. I was just at a luncheon in Cottage Grove to a group of 70 and 80-year-old guys, and I was talking to them about what we're doing here at the Capitol and public safety and decrease your taxes, and they clapped when I talked about no tax on Social Security, and then I said, and I gotta leave because I'm going over to the Capitol because we're doing a sports betting press conference, and they were like, what? I said, yeah, we want to legalize sports betting in Minnesota. Got the biggest cheer ever from 70 and 80-year-old guys. So it is really, really a popular issue, not just among the younger generation. As a matter of fact, there's a couple of sergeants on our floor, on the Senate floor. I'm not allowed to say their names, but they are also sports betting on their phones. And I've taken a couple of trips across the state border to Iowa to do it, and we got to keep this money here in our state. It generates billions of dollars in revenue and billions of dollars of tax revenues for our state that can be used for many different things, like Senator Chamberlain said. So it's really, really time that we get this done here in Minnesota. It's a win-win-win for the tribes, the tracts, and the consumers. Thank you.
Did you want to say something?
Hi, everybody. State Senator Mark Coran, representing Senate District 32, and they covered the most of it. I'm enthusiastically supporting it. It really brings something that's legal in many states and brings us the ability for us to provide the consumer protection and make sure that, one, we have good legal opportunity to, we don't force the younger generation to emulate an out-of-state IP address in order to partake, and we keep the revenue in Minnesota. So, thank you.
Okay, questions?
You mentioned that the state would control the online gaming operations, but in this news release, it talks about sub-licenses issued by tribal nations to vendors for online gaming. Is that, can you clarify, or is there a separate way for the tribal governments to have a bite into the online operation?
So just again, on a high level, we've always wanted to protect the interests of the tribes. We get it. We want to do that. But we also have to have a good product for the customers. And that means we need competition. We need a variety of places and opportunities for that to happen. As you see with this little handout, in-person mobile casinos and racetracks. So to your question specifically, yes, to clarify, federal law, of course, controls the tribal lands. Things that happen on tribal lands are restricted to what the state can do. For instance, we can't tax that revenue and bring it in. We can get reasonable costs, could recover reasonable administrative costs for things that we do. We can't tax that. So the mobile piece, everybody understands, is outside tribal land. And because it's outside tribal land and there are transactions going on outside through the mobile, you're in Chaska or Owatonna or Fargo, East Grand Forks, and you're betting online, that's outside the tribal lands. So those transactions are controlled by the state. So the state, the way the law should be written and is written, is the state would control that piece of it and be able to tax those revenues. About 60, 70% of the transactions right now are through mobile, maybe even higher. So does that help out?
Well, I guess just the idea of sub-licenses. So it's not to
Yes,
say
okay.
the state will control 2 online operators and that funding or the revenues that would come for it, and they tax it. And then separately, tribal casinos could say, we are going to create our own online sports book or contract with X and control that.
Well,
The sub-license
to
part is
put a
what's
finer point on that, right now, the way it's going to be written is the tribe will control those 2 online applications, right? They will have control of it. We get to license it because it's outside of the transactions will be taking place outside of the tribal lands for the most part, but they will control those licenses, right? And then they will have the ability, and the way I'm looking at it right now to have written, the way we're thinking about it, is they would have the ability to sub-license to their other tribes if they see fit. So does that help out? So, no? Okay.
I'm sorry to belabor this point, but so it sounds like they control it?
The tribes will control that application and that process. They will get the revenue from it, okay? So they'll have, say for instance, there's 2 mobile licenses, right? They will control any sub-licenses that go out to other tribes or anybody else. And they get the revenue from the transactions to them, right? The only thing we get is a licensing fee for licensing that business to operate in Minnesota, the application, and for the sales tax taxed on those transactions. How's that?
That seems a little better.
All off reservation stuff. Anything on reservation is theirs. The licenses will be controlled by the tribes, right? And therefore, they will get any revenue from those transactions, all right? Online, mobile stuff, right?
When they do it outside of the tribes, when I'm at home in Minneapolis
Right,
doing this.
because you're outside of the tribal land, then that transaction is taxable, right?
Okay.
So if you're on the tribal land, right, we are hands off. But if you're off tribal land, like these licenses will be, they still control it, we'll let them control that and get the revenue, but we still have to tax the transactions because they're not there doing it. They're not there on physical insight.
So at the risk of going down a rabbit hole, does this require a new compact?
Most likely in the state of Minnesota, yes. Some states didn't, like Michigan did not because they already had a different setup there. Here, we're most likely going to have another compact. Typically, the way it works, as many of you might know, is that we can legalize something here, and then if they want to take part, and this is how the casinos work now, they enter into a compact with the state to be able to have those casinos on their tribal land. Now, that's part of federal law, so does that make sense?
Senator, have you been consulting with the tribal authorities prior to this proposal? Because they tell me they heard about this news conference on KFAN, I think, today. So have they been involved in these discussions?
So we have been involved in the discussions indirectly, right? Because we said a long time ago that we want to help the tribes out and protect their interests, but we want to also make this available to consumers in the state. So we're still at that point, so I know their position, but this is a very good spot for everybody to be in.
And as a follow-up to that, clearly any successful proposal is going to have to go through the Indian tribes. So you're going to consult with them moving forward to make sure they're on board?
Right. I mean, we always have, right? Indirectly, both. We have consulted with them. Look, I want to protect their interests. We're going to negotiate with them. But I've said this more than once. In the reality of things, we do not need the tribes to do this. We only need the tribe because if there's agreement somewhere, I'm not going to politicize this, they will support some agreements and others they won't. And without that political support, then certain things don't happen. I don't want to get political about it, but we never needed their support to pass legislation. It's just a lobbying group that has a particular amount of leverage and power.
I think the governor has also said it's going to need their blessing, so that's a key stumbling block, right?
They're a lobbying group, and that is his prerogative. So, but baseline, you don't need the tribe to say, okay, go ahead. You only need them if the lobbying group is strong enough. So to your point, yes, I agree. Yes.
John stole my rabbit hole joke, so I won't use it again. But this might qualify. It sounds like you think they will contract with the FanDuels and the DraftKings of the world as opposed to setting up some mechanism of their own. Because some states have not allowed those entities into the state. They've created their own sports betting mobile app.
Our desire and our hope is to allow flexibility to people, to organizations, the tribes in this case, or the tracks, to develop those relationships and contracts as they see fit. We have no problem with them creating arrangements and agreements with other organizations that frankly know how to run the business. That is why a lot of states bring in outside organizations who have a lot of experience doing this, because it makes it easier and they know how to do it. Now, if someone has the expertise and know how to do it, they'll keep it in-house. But there are benefits to contracting stuff like this out, right, no matter what it is. So we don't want to say you can't have them here, but anybody, this is how it is every other state. If you come in here, you want to participate in this, if you're going to be a vendor, or you're going to do mobile, or you want brick and mortar, and you're outside the tribal lands, you've got to pay a fee for the application and a license to operate. Does that make sense?
Could you make it a brick and mortar off reservation?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of our proposal. That'll be part of our proposal. 2 brick and mortar for each of the racetracks, and then we'll work a deal that can entice the tribe, protect the tribes, while also enhancing the business, entertainment and business experience, the entertainment and customer experience for the 2 tracks.